That year, the HOA's audacity reached a new peak. Once again, Karen and her officers had decided to interfere with the farm. But this time, their target was the pond bridge, a critical structure connecting different sections of the property. Without understanding its significance, they razed it entirely, apparently believing that destroying it would somehow assert HOA authority. What they failed to anticipate, however, was that the bridge was integrated into a much larger system, and its destruction would trigger a response carefully planned and executed by both humans and animals on the farm. The morning began with the usual calm. Titania and the herd grazed near the pond, while geese patrolled the perimeter and goats explored nearby embankments. I had been monitoring the bridge for weeks, anticipating potential interference, and had prepared a strategic contingency. The bridge's removal would allow me to redirect water flow, isolate certain areas temporarily, and even convert sections of the pond if necessary. It was a precise, calculated maneuver that combined engineering, legal compliance, and natural defense. As Karen's team approached, ready to demolish the structure, the animals began their subtle but highly effective positioning. Titania stood at the edge of the pond, her hooves stamping authoritatively in the mud, signaling territorial boundaries. The rest of the herd fanned out across the perimeter, creating a controlled presence that communicated the rules of engagement without aggression. Geese flapped and honked loudly, patrolling narrow passages, while goats moved along strategic paths to block potential intrusions and guide movement away from sensitive areas. Once the bridge was raised, I immediately put my contingency plan into action. I opened a series of barriers and valves that allowed the pond's water to flow into designated channels, effectively emptying the section leading to the HOA's leisure spot. Within minutes, the $4 million recreational pond, which Karen and her officers had valued so highly, was drained, leaving the leisure area unusable. The irony was undeniable. Their act of destruction had directly resulted in a far greater consequence for their prized property. Karen, oblivious to the sequence of events, attempted to intervene. She waved her clipboard, shouted instructions, and demanded explanations, but her efforts were futile. The animals maintained their strategic positions, Titania stamping the mud, horses fanning out across the perimeter, geese honking rhythmically, and goats blocking any access to the newly drained area. Each movement reinforced the farm's authority and territorial control, leaving Karen powerless to influence the situation. The police arrived, called once again by Karen in a futile attempt to assert authority. I calmly presented all documentation: property deeds, water management permits, environmental compliance records, and operational plans for both the pond and the bridge. The officers quickly recognized that the farm was acting entirely within its legal rights, and that any interference by the HOA would be both illegal and strategically unwise. Karen's confidence evaporated, replaced by visible frustration and humiliation. By mid-afternoon, calm returned to the property. The pond remained drained, the bridge removed, and the animals resumed their regular routines. Titania and the herd grazed near the water's edge, geese patrolled the perimeter, and goats explored the newly exposed areas, maintaining territorial control. The HOA's interference had backfired spectacularly. Not only had they failed to assert authority, but their actions had inadvertently resulted in a far more dramatic consequence for themselves. That evening, as the sun reflected off the pond's shallow waters, I reflected on the incident. The farm had once again turned an act of aggression into an advantage, demonstrating the perfect coordination of human planning, legal authority, and animal guardianship. Karen had learned, yet again, that meddling with property without understanding the ecosystem, the law, or the strategic placement of natural and human defenses was not only foolish but destined to fail. The pond, empty but controlled, stood as a testament to foresight, preparation, and the seamless integration of law and nature. The bridge had been removed, the HOA had been humiliated, and the farm's operations remained intact. Titania and her herd, the geese, and the goats had all played their part flawlessly, reinforcing the farm's sovereignty and ensuring that any future attempts at interference would be met with immediate, undeniable consequences.